This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hey, Marcus House with you here. SpaceX at BocaChica is screaming forward with loads of updates, preparing the site for the most powerful rocket ever created to lift off for the first time. So much to cover there just this week. SpaceX also successfully launched the SXM8 digital radio satellite, which is the sister satellite to the ill-fated SXM7. Some surprise announcements as well from Relativity Space, unveiling the Terran R fully reusable launch vehicle design. Jeff Bezos is going to be among the first to fly on new Shephard next month. That's a gutsy move right there. And although we've seen a delay in the scheduled United Launch Alliance STP-3 mission, there are some interesting reasons why that has occurred.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
So there is a very good reason that each week we typically start off running over the latest updates on SpaceX's Starship and Super Heavy rocket. But why does the space community follow this so closely? It's because of the unusual nature of the development itself. Most space agencies keep their development process undercover and stick with the standard disposable systems built on platforms using decades of existing technology. It is expensive and slow for these agencies to change direction. Well, the speed and production by SpaceX is something that almost seems alien in comparison. They currently, at least, allow us enthusiasts to peer inside and diagnose what is going on each week. SpaceX is developing the most powerful rocket ever created. The sheer size of the Super Heavy is absolutely monstrous, but not only that, it will have an incredible engine thrust, which is estimated at more than 7,500 metric tons as the design evolves to have 32 engines in the near future. That is enough, by the way, to lift just over 2 fully loaded Saturn V rockets. The Saturn V weighed in at around 2.8 million kilograms. So yeah, 2 of those. Just let that sink in for a minute. The big question, of course, is can SpaceX get this baby to lift off and stay intact? It sure is going to be exciting to find out. Of course, every step of the way towards achieving this accomplishment involves a great deal of design iteration, and in the case of SpaceX, rapid prototyping with exciting and sometimes destructive tests along the way. If the development of this Starship and Super Heavy vehicle is successful, and SpaceX so far have a very good track record at achieving the impossible, this new rocket will change the world, quite literally. No longer will the cost of launching payloads be out of reach from all but the largest of companies and governments. This will allow humans to shoot over 100 metric tons of payload into orbit at a time for a very low cost compared to what we currently see now. As soon as that cost is lowered considerably, commercial options for space tourism, exploration, and even asteroid mining missions will become much more feasible. Then the ultimate longer term goal, of course, being the colonization of the Moon and Mars. Because of all this, it is not hard to see why this amazing story has amassed the following that it has. You and many others like you have changed our world here, tuning in every Saturday, subscribing, liking and sharing these videos, and also helping us run this channel in a variety of ways. Thank you so much for your support. We are thrilled to explore these topics with you each and every week. SpaceX is currently targeting this first orbital Starship launch this summer, utilising booster number 2 and Starship 20, or as we typically refer to them, BN2 and SN20. BN2 is currently being stacked in the high bay and is now 20 rings high, over half of its full 70-metre height. This here that we see is BN2's downcomer, which will feed all of the liquid methane down through the liquid oxygen tank and into the manifold that divides the fuel into the 29 Raptor engines. This huge downcomer was transported to the high bay, where it was then lifted and presumably placed through its common dome and through the liquid oxygen tank. This is an absolute monster, and we can at least roughly tell a few things about it just from the imagery that we can see here. SpaceX 3D Creation Eccentric has roughly measured and built this 3D model to give us a better perspective. You've just got to appreciate the massive volume of liquid methane that will flow from the top tank in only a few minutes of flight. I've had many people ask me over the last week why there are these circular joints all the way up. These, I believe, are stiffeners to aid in support from the top to the bottom and also help limit vibration. As the pressures at the bottom of the tank are going to be greater, you can see that the spacing between the stiffeners gets closer as we head downward. These bulkier joints here we imagine are going to connect to the outer walls of the tank via some sort of support structure that is so far unseen. As the tank empties out, there is going to be a big pressure change around this downcomer as it transitions from liquid to gas. These here are daily 3D updates available, so make sure you're following there on Twitter and YouTube. The links are in the description. So while we are at the high bay here, we observed some tests of the high bay disco bar lights via Lab Padre's Sentinel camera. As we can see here, they cycled through a few colours with the tests lasting about 5 minutes. So as we've learned over the last few weeks, BN2 is expected to have a set of 29 Raptor engines installed for its flight. In order to test this brand new engine configuration without risking a complete booster, SpaceX built BN 2.1, which is a 6-ring tall test tank containing the aft dome with the Super Heavy engine mount and an ordinary forward dome. Here we see it mounted on a stand already equipped with 9 thrust rams to simulate the forces of the inner engines against that new mount. This test tank was rolled down to the launch site ahead of its first test on Tuesday this week, where the tank was filled and pressurized with liquid nitrogen. All seemed to go well, however it is unknown at this stage at least whether or not the thrust rams were utilized in this test. SN20, the Starship that will fly the first orbital flight, is also progressing well. Its aft dome has also been spotted, sporting 3 mounts for vacuum Raptors, indicating that SN20 may be the first Starship to fly with both sea level and vacuum optimized engines. The orbital launch site is once again going full speed ahead. The launch tower, which currently has the 3 steel sections, is going to get much higher shortly. Tuesday, the 4th section was rolled to the launch site, then a 5th was rolled down on Friday, so both of these now needing stacking. And at the Sanchez gas site, another section is already under construction. In order to prepare to stack all of these, the giant crane that has already been used for the first few sections has had extensions added. Right beside that, the orbital launch mount has now got its 6 extensions installed. The launch table is going to sit right on top of these extensions, which is currently being prepared at the production site. The ground support equipment tanks and cryo tank shells are also progressing quickly, with a new tank being rolled to the pad on Tuesday, and another section is undergoing stacking at the Sanchez site. BocaChica Gal with NASA Spaceflight, as always out there recording history, confirmed that this particular shell rolling down this week was in fact the 12-meter wide water tank. We can see this thanks to a label which also includes a diagram of the future external piping that it is going to receive. So yes, to sum up the build progress for the week, here is the latest Starship production diagram thanks to Brendan Lewis. Progress with SN20 and BN2 is coming along very nicely as SpaceX looks to get orbital as quickly as possible. A brand new MST radar was spotted this week at Starbase as well, which is a new wind radar that will help SpaceX measure and predict upper level winds for future launch attempts. We also saw here Eric Ralph posting a couple of interesting tweets related to Starship job postings. The first here says that SpaceX is hiring a Starship medical engineer to design, integrate and implement a medical system for the future Starship, as well as providing medical support during flight operations. As he also says here, that sounds like future crew Starships are going to have their own dedicated medical facilities. It's hard for many of us sci-fi molded minds to not read between the lines of this post and see it as SpaceX attempting to develop a real-life Starship medbay. Now we are going to take a step away from SpaceX's Starbase to take a look at the McGregor test facility, also in Texas. This location handles all of the engine and Falcon 9 booster testing. It's especially notable for the 5 stands that are now online for the Raptor engine. We'll talk more about that in just a moment, but first a big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. If you are like me, you'll love learning new tricks that increase the appeal of your content along with the productivity of what you do. Skillshare offers a massive online learning experience that also allows you to connect with a community of thousands of other people with similar goals to yourself. I've found so much value in areas that I didn't even know that I wanted to know more about. Only weeks ago, I was running over content and spotted this great course that shares the process that Marquez Brownlee has gone through to set up his incredible channel on YouTube, which is of course MKBHD. Like any personality you see on the YouTube platform, everybody started from nothing and then grew their skills over time. We here get to learn about where he started, essentially creating videos on his single computer with a built-in camera, and then slowly building up a following on YouTube. Perhaps content you create, whether on YouTube or any other platform, platform would benefit from some of this key advice. If you want to share your passions and opinions with the world, this great content is certainly going to help you. Skillshare is organised specifically for learning with no ads interrupting you, and it's also incredibly affordable at less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. If you'd like to help support me and you'd like to give it a try, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get 30% off the annual premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Even if you've already had a free trial of Skillshare, you can still take advantage of this offer to get a full year of unlimited learning and creative exploration. Just follow the link there in the description below. So yes, the McGregor test facility with 5 testing stands for the Raptor engine we see right here. Gary Blair for NASA Spaceflight often documents the happenings in McGregor on his flights over the area. On one of his recent flights, he captured what looks to be just another Raptor engine on a horizontal test stand. However, it includes 3 separate letters and numbers. After some steady image cleaning and hard reflection over that image, we believe the letters could spell out RB1. This may be indicative of Raptor Boost 1, which could be the very first boost level engine for future orbital flights. Elon here previously mentioned R-Boost back in October of last year as the next generation of booster engines. These would be capable of 300 metric tons of thrust, all while keeping the exact same engine nozzle exit as the normal production sea-level engines. If that's the case, this would be truly game-changing when it comes to the overall thrust of Super Heavy. Elon once again reiterated the massive ambitions of the 7,500 tons of thrust for the booster just a few weeks ago as well. With all that in mind, R-Boost is a necessity to the overall thrust of Super Heavy, so it's going to make sense that we begin to see these very first prototypes appearing right now. Keeping track of all these engines isn't an easy feat, but Artsius here has been doing that for a few months now. Here we can see most of the known engines which have appeared in McGregor and at Starbase. These engines will soon be piling up for the very first orbital booster, so be sure to keep an eye there on these diagrams to know when these engines show up and where they are. So in some other news, an interesting rocket design by Relativity Space, the Terran R, was announced this week, which would make quite an astounding launch vehicle once created. The design they presented just the other day features a fully reusable 3D printed rocket, which they hope will be a vessel taking the stand by 2024. That is an unbelievable target considering that they are yet to have their first launch of the Terran 1, which is currently in development and is a much smaller and fully expendable vehicle. The Terran 1, of course, aims to place around 1.25 metric tons into orbit at a time, and last I heard that was planning the first launch late this year or early in 2022. So this Terran R design aims to be able to place 20 metric tons into low Earth orbit while fully reusing both the first and second stage. The Falcon 9, I believe, can place somewhere between 15 and 16 metric tons into low Earth orbit while also landing the booster on a drone ship. So this suggests a further 5 tons or so on top of that. That is quite the claim. The tank width of a Falcon 9 is 3.7 meters and the Terran R is 5. Proportionately, it looks a little stockier, so I suspect it will be just a little shorter than the Falcon 9, but still a lot more massive due to the increased diameter. Now, as this news was announced, immediate comments to me were that this is very close looking to the earlier Starship design, which was at the time named BFR. And I can see where they're coming from here. Certainly a lot of inspiration here. It's also going to use liquid oxygen and liquid methane just like Starship. Of course, at the moment, it is just a design concept. There is a monstrous number of steps for Relativity Space to take this design and turn it into the real vehicle, and I certainly do wish them all the best with that. We typically see a lot of designs come and go without ever seeing the light of day, but if Relativity Space can have huge success with the Terran 1 over the next few years while this is in development, that gives them a good start. Currently, the website here is lacking a lot of detail about the vessel, but hopefully we're going to learn a little more soon about the intended recovery process. What do you think about the Terran R concept? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, we only just had the June 3rd launch of SpaceX's CRS-22 cargo resupply mission to the space station, but then just 3 days later on June 6th, another flight-proven Falcon 9 booster lifted off, this time from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. This mission was to launch the SXM8 digital radio satellite for its US audio entertainment customer, SiriusXM. Yet another flawless liftoff for Falcon 9 as it hurtled its way out of the atmosphere. We saw there the main engine cutoff soon after, followed by fairing separation, and then the booster continued on to make a safe landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Around the same time, the second stage was placed into a parking orbit, and from there it was a short coast phase before a second engine restart pushed the payload into the desired orbit prior to its deployment. Now, you may recall back in December 2020, SpaceX successfully launched from the same pad and deployed the SiriusXM sister satellite SXM7. Unfortunately for the satellite manufacturer Maxar, the payload itself had some failures and attempts to fix the situation were not successful. They do plan, I believe, to replace that lost satellite at some point in the future. Now, another interesting story this week was Jeff Bezos announcing that both he and his brother are actually going to be flying on the new Shephard in late July, which is of course the vehicle designed and flown by Blue Origin. Although it wasn't surprising seeing the announcement of the passengers that would be aboard, it did take us a little by surprise that Jeff himself would be on the very first flight mission with human life on board. That is a gutsy move, and it certainly shows the trust that Jeff Bezos already has in their own technology. That flight is going to occur just a little over 2 weeks after he steps down as chief executive of Amazon. Now, the new Shephard, for those of you that are unfamiliar, has already performed 15 suborbital flights, which have all been successful, with the exception of the first flight's booster not touching down due to some sort of hydraulic system issue on the descent. All of the capsules have survived the trip quite fine, and that first flight was actually way back in 2015. At the time, of course, this was super exciting as the flight almost crept up out of nowhere. Fast forward 6 years and we are still patiently waiting for the very first flight with humans on board. Now, it's worth noting, of course, that this vessel just heads straight up past 100 kilometers in altitude and then falls back down. That means that any crew in this vessel will only have a few minutes to experience that weightlessness that comes along with this flight. It is going to be very nice to see some imagery of the passengers floating in the capsule after all this time. Years ago, we had thought that this would be occurring very frequently by now, and that New Glenn would be sending payloads into low Earth orbit very frequently and beyond. But, you know, it seems to have taken Blue Origin quite some time to get to this stage. Regardless, we love seeing progress on tourist-based vehicles to spread the enthusiasm for the industry around. For the moment, though, it seems to be limited to just the super wealthy, but hey, we've got to start somewhere. Now, the United Launch Alliance Atlas V STP-3 mission, originally set to launch on June 23rd, has been postponed, which was a little disappointing for us keen to watch this flight. What was interesting was the reason for the delay though. CEO Tori Bruno announced the reason was related to observations of the Centaur upper stage RL10 engine on May the 18th's launch. Looking at the video feed here, you can clearly see the engine nozzle essentially ringing. Tori said here on Twitter that those watching the live feed may have observed some ringing of RL10's brand new carbon nozzle extension. While it did its job well by boosting the eye-watering performance higher, we wanted to make sure we fully understand the behaviour before flying this configuration again. So yes, even though that has caused a delay, there's not going to be any implications for the Boeing Starliner Orbital Flight Test 2, as the upper stage will not have this same RL10 configuration. In fact, the Starliner was meant to be the next launch in line after the STP-3 launch, so perhaps it could now be moved up to take centre stage. Time is going to tell. Meanwhile, the new launch date for STP-3 and its varied payloads will be advised very soon. Now, with that mission, we have NASA's Laser Communication Relay Demonstration Experiment. Essentially, this is a method of optical space communications. This new generation of hardware looks set to dramatically improve bandwidth, security and reliability of transmissions, as well as involving less mass and power requirements. That has some serious applications for Earth orbits, lunar and deep space missions. Hopefully we get to cover that topic a little bit more when we get to see the future flight. So yes, it sure has been yet another interesting week of updates. Remember as well that we are huge supporters of the transition to electric vehicles here on the channel, and our partner EV offers the ability to hire an electric vehicle in Australia. Perhaps you have wanted to take an extended test drive. You could be touring the country and want to drive around in a Tesla. If that sounds appealing to you, you can use the link in the description for a discount. Thank you most of all to you right there, our incredible viewers and supporters. You could be a regular viewer of our content, perhaps a patron or a YouTube member supporting what we do, or you could also be picking up some sweet gear from our merch store, including this shirt that you can see right here. This design also is available in a wide range of products and clothing styles. There's also a reversed style of this one as well if you want it on a dark colour. No matter how you support here, know that it contributes significantly to what we do, and it allows us to increase the time that we can collectively spend in research, editing and quality control. If you like what we're doing and you'd like to help us out with what we're doing directly, you can join up as a YouTube member via the join button below, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/MarcusHouse. Either of those options gives you access to chat with us more directly via the linked roles on our Discord server. You can also have your name listed right here like these other incredible people, and you also get earlier and ad-free access to the videos to watch before anyone else. A big thank you as well to the production crew and the quality control squad here for helping me research and proof the material for these videos. If you are interested in these topics and you would like to keep up to date, remember to follow here below and on Twitter at MarcusHouse. In the tile in the bottom left today, here we have my video from last week. In the top right is my latest video, and in the bottom right, content that YouTube has selected from my channel just for you. Thank you everyone as always for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.